Hi, everyone. This is Heather Hodges. I'm an organizational psychologist. Welcome to my show. This is the place where we say I'm in to creativity, bold thinking, transformational growth, and meaningful conversations. Today, we're continuing our discussion of motivation. Let's face it, there are times in our life when we just don't have it. We are completely unmotivated, and we need to do something to get ourselves moving. And sometimes we need to inspire and motivate our team. And on our last episode, we explored motivation through the lens of the Enneagram. And today, we're going to look at self-determination theory and specifically how you can motivate your team using insights from this model. And so this episode will answer a question I hear all the time in coaching and leadership training. Heather, how can I motivate my team? And if you definitively know the Enneagram number of the person that you are coaching or leading, you can be targeted with how you coach them and lead them and motivate them. But what if you don't know their Enneagram number? Now, we all have basic psychological needs as human beings. And so you can use this knowledge to motivate your team. And so today, I'll also share with you some ways that leaders can accidentally, or maybe sometimes intentionally, destroy motivation on their team. So let's start with the psychology of motivation. So motivation, as you know, comes in two main forms. There's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation is what drives you from within, your curiosity, your passion, your sense of purpose. And extrinsic motivation, on the other hand, that's all about external rewards, things like money or recognition, or maybe a good grade on a project. Sometimes it's avoiding a bad grade or some other kind of punishment or penalty. Now, interestingly enough, it seems counterintuitive, but extrinsic motivators are usually only effective in the short term for short-term goals. So the research shows that extrinsic motivation, it's not lasting. It doesn't always have that long-lasting effect. Whereas intrinsic motivators, on the other hand, they're more powerful for sustained long-term performance. And that's where self-determination theory comes in. Self-determination theory, it was developed by two psychologists, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, back in the 1980s. And it's a framework that explores what motivates us as humans. And at its core, self-determination theory emphasizes the importance of intrinsic motivation over extrinsic motivation. And in their research, Deci and Ryan, they identified 3 psychological needs that fuel intrinsic motivation. And these 3 needs are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So what do these mean, and how can they transform the way we think about motivation? And how can you use this knowledge to understand your own motivation and to help motivate your team? So once again, the 3 psychological needs that we all share are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. The psychological need for autonomy is the need to feel like we are in control of our own choices. And the research shows that when we're given the freedom to approach tasks our way, we feel empowered and motivated. And at work, this can look like a workplace where employees have some level of flexibility, like choosing their own schedule, or maybe working remotely, or maybe even the autonomy in how they tackle a project, or the freedom to contribute their creative ideas. And these things give us a sense of control that just simply leads to deeper engagement and better outcomes. Now, the second psychological need is competence. And this is the need to feel capable and effective in what we do. Making progress is incredibly motivating, and even small wins can make a big difference in how motivated we are to keep going. Think about how great you feel when you've mastered a new skill, or how it feels when you've completed a project, or maybe set a new personal record. And on the flip side, think about how you feel when you've been blocked from making progress for whatever reason or another. It's so demotivating. And as leaders, we can support this need for competence in our team by providing feedback and opportunities for growth. And the research is clear. Having the opportunity for growth and development, it may be one of the biggest reasons that talented people choose to stay in a job or choose to go to another job where they do have the opportunity to grow. And finally, the psychological need for relatedness. That's all about connection. And we thrive when we feel part of something bigger, whether it's a close-knit family, a supportive team, or maybe just a shared mission and goal. And did you know that one of the key indicators for employee engagement is having a friend at work and feeling connected to your coworkers? Relationships fuel our motivation by reminding us we're not alone on this journey. So why do we lose motivation at work? So this will not be a big surprise to most of you, but at work, some of the most common reasons we lose motivation are feeling burned out, not having clear goals, when priorities constantly change, a lack of feedback, and bad leaders, toxic environments, and being micromanaged. Now, many of you are leaders, and you're probably listening to this podcast to grow your leadership, but you may also have experienced really bad or even toxic leaders in your career. And if that's you, I absolutely hate that. You should not have had to endure a toxic leader for one moment. And I know many of you have wounds and work trauma from having to report to a toxic leader. It's not okay, but it's real. And my dearest hope for you is that you're healing from that experience and that you have an amazing leader now and things are completely different. So whether you've had great leaders your whole career or you've had bad leaders, we can learn something from everyone. Even bad leaders can teach us something about leadership. Mainly, they teach us what not to do. So let's talk about how bad leaders can kill motivation at work. And I'm specifically thinking about toxic, autocratic, or micromanaging leaders. They absolutely destroy motivation on their team by undermining trust and stifling creativity and violating these three core psychological needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So toxic leaders, these are people who often belittle or criticize or even humiliate their team members. And autocratic leaders, they just demand obedience and they make unilateral decisions without involving their team. So they have this really rigid top-down approach that just signals to employees that their input is not needed or valued or wanted. And both of these kinds of leaders, toxic and autocratic leaders, they foster a culture of fear and resentment. So instead of feeling empowered, employees focus on self-preservation. So they avoid risks or anything that is innovative. So they keep their heads down, they keep to themselves just to try to escape criticism. So toxic and autocratic leaders just kill motivation. So for example, let's say that you have a toxic manager who publicly shames an employee for missing a deadline without even considering all of the systemic issues that might have contributed to the delay, things that might be completely out of their control, like a shipping delay because of a natural disaster, or maybe a change of leadership in a sister department that affects workflow, or maybe an IT issue and the data warehouse is down, and so on. So when that toxic leader publicly shames that employee, it's no wonder they become disengaged or lose motivation and become fearful of future criticism. And so they avoid taking initiative. Now, in a similar way, a micromanaging leader kills motivation by crushing creativity and crushing confidence. A micromanaging leader, they insist on approving or overseeing every decision, and it's often down to just minor details. And that can have a negative impact on trust and creativity and productivity. Now, I do think that some micromanagement comes out of a desire for excellence or maybe a fear of failure, but it almost always ends up in negative outcomes for both the employee and the organization, because all of that constant hovering and that constant oversight, it just shouts, "I don't trust you." And so it's demotivating. And so the bottom line is toxic, autocratic, and micromanaging leaders kill motivation because they deny employees what they need to thrive, which is trust and respect and the freedom to grow. And so the best leaders, creative leaders, focus on inspiring their teams, not controlling them, and creating an environment where motivation flourishes. So as you can see, there are a lot of ways to kill motivation, but how do we spark and sustain motivation? Because as leaders, one of the best ways to motivate our team is to create an environment that supports autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So give your team members the freedom to make decisions, help them build skills, and create a culture of trust and connection. So let's take one more look at how you can use each of the psychological needs from self-determination theory to motivate your team. First, the first need is autonomy. So people feel motivated when they perceive that they have control over their actions and decisions. And I love the way Harvard professor Teresa Amabile puts it. And her body of research was on creativity and motivation in teams. And she found that autonomy nurtures creativity. And she gave this example. She said that leaders should tell their team which mountain to climb, but then let the team decide how to climb the mountain. So here are your action steps to foster autonomy. First, let the individuals on your team choose how to approach tasks or goals. Number two, help people see how their actions align with the broader values or purpose of the organization. And number three, provide guidance, not control, to help them take ownership of their work. And the second need is competence. So people are motivated when they feel competent and capable of achieving their goals. Now, we all need clear expectations and attainable goals and opportunities to learn or demonstrate skills. So here are your action steps to foster competence in your team. First, set challenging but achievable goals. Goals should stretch people without overwhelming them. Number two, give timely, constructive feedback and acknowledge their efforts. Remember, a simple thank you goes a long way right now. That's not just what the money is for. Even if it's not your personality to say thank you, or maybe you don't need a thank you from your boss, you should be thanking your team for their efforts and contributions. And number 3, offer growth opportunities. As a leader, it's your job to regularly provide opportunities for skill development and learning, or maybe taking on new responsibilities. And finally, the third psychological need is relatedness. So feeling connected to others and valued in relationships, it motivates people to engage and contribute. So here are your action steps to foster relatedness. First, encourage teamwork and meaningful interactions. And second, create a safe, inclusive environment where people feel understood and appreciated. And third, build a sense of purpose. So highlight how individual contributions connect to the larger mission or group success. Okay, to wrap up, motivation is not just about trying harder. It's about creating the right conditions. And these are things that you can do as a leader to foster motivation on your team. And there are things that you can do to absolutely kill it. So try focusing on ways to offer autonomy and competence and relatedness so you can unlock deeper, more sustainable motivation for yourself and for your team. And so this week, I challenge you to reflect on how these 3 needs show up in your life and on your team. So what's one small change you can make to foster autonomy or build competence or strengthen relatedness? So until next time, keep saying amen to creativity, bold thinking, transformational growth, and meaningful conversations. And please subscribe, share this podcast with a friend, and leave a review to help others find us. May you be wildly creative in your life and leadership. See you soon.